Trade-offs between following blindly made-up rules and experimenting with these. Today, a glass of mine broke, and this glass happened to crash onto the floor. Then, after something like this would happen, at home at least, when I grew up, my mother would tell us all to put on shoes, because otherwise we would step into the rests of the glass, and then it would basically cut open the feet. So running around barefoot or with socks on was not really an option then. So now, as this glass today broke, and as I'm not longer living with my family, or with my parents rather, I still put on shoes because I remembered this rule, and it is also somewhat obvious. Another rule very similar to this is to then not use your hands to pick up the rests of the glass. But despite this, I for years now have been using my hands to just remove the glass somewhat. Now, you can use your hands to a certain extent if you are very careful and you don't put too much pressure on it. And you also can use your hands, at least in theory, up until the point until you cut yourself and you have learned your lesson. And the same is true for the rule to put on shoes. Because afterwards, even though I did get the rests of the glass, and of course the glass kind of splinters, and then multiple parts of the glass, called shards of glass, lay around in my apartment. And afterwards I didn't remember, as I came back from somewhere else, and then I stepped onto the glass and cut myself. There have been a few experiments, if I remember correctly, where people put different animals into a group. And sometimes, the original idea was how to test whether a group would blindly follow such made-up rules. So now in the beginning, I think one of these animals was taught a lesson. So if you pull this lever and this lever and this lever, then something like this happens. Then you removed the original animal, and then afterwards, every new animal that came into the group would just blindly follow the made-up rules. The question now, the bigger question is, how many rules can you test yourself? And therefore also have to take the cost of having to cut yourself in regards to the glass shards, for example. And how many rules do you decide to just blindly follow that others have made up that could be totally wrong? But again, if you decide to test them yourself, and even if you do it years after years after years, and you take your hands and put the shards of glass together, then still eventually you just might cut yourself.